Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. I'm still super busy, but I couldn't hold it anymore, so I'm going to record at least a quick video for you with Ukraine Daily News. We're going to talk about the situation at the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia, and we're going to talk about the new record-breaking attack of Ukraine on the oil facility in Russia, as well as cover some of the other important news from and around Ukraine. Let's begin. Firstly, let's take apart the situation that has occurred in the nuclear power plant of Zaporizhia. It is one of the biggest nuclear power plants in Europe, and that's why everyone is watching it very closely, because if something happens to that nuclear power plant, well, it can cause trouble for the whole continent pretty much. And what happened is that for a while now, Russia has been claiming that the situation at the nuclear power plant has become critical. The power has been disconnected for the nuclear power plant, and that diesel generators that were sustaining the cooling inside of the power plant, they were also not running as efficiently as before. And the whole situation, it was kind of a repeat cycle of what we already had a couple of times beforehand, specifically when Ukraine tried to do certain activities in order to retake this occupied power plant by Russia. But this time, Russia unfortunately got caught red-handed. And while for about a couple of days, there was actual questions whether or not it was Ukraine and Ukrainians shooting at the nuclear power plant to blame, because Russia is using this nuclear power plant as a safe spot for a lot of their equipment storage. They're using their drone operators. If you haven't heard before, you can Google what is Safari in Kherson region, and then you will find out what Russians are doing around that area, essentially hunting people with their drones. So they're bringing new drone operators to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, where Ukrainians cannot retaliate, and they're launching drones from there, and then they're training their drone operators in safety to target civilians on the other part of Dnipro River. And this has been ongoing for a while now, and Ukraine cannot really do anything. But the assumption was that finally Ukrainians tried to respond, and unfortunately they cut out the power supply to these secondary functions of the nuclear power plant to keep cool down the nuclear fuel. Unfortunately, the investigation of the OSINT analysts plus the investigation from Greenpeace that also confirmed this. They've studied the satellite images on what was actually happening around nuclear power plant and where the power lines were coming in, and they found absolutely zero signs of any kind of interference, essentially calling Russia's bullshit that whatever was happening was very clearly just started by Russia, and it was not a real problem whatsoever. Quote, "The nuclear power plant is no longer used as an energy facility, but it is used exclusively for military purposes, and the goal is clear: international pressure. The occupiers are doing this, the provocation, to use nuclear blackmail against the whole world." Yes, Russia is engaged in terrorism right now against us Europeans, be it with the drones or be it with the nuclear power plant. The goal of terrorism is always one and the same. It is doing some activities that will make you feel unsafe. The same way as terrorists are killing some people on the streets just so you don't feel safe walking down those streets, so you feel afraid, the same thing that Russia is doing right now. Terrorism, so you don't feel safe as well. This is a current Russian modus operandi, and I'm glad to hear that European reaction has been very stoic, and they have responded very clearly that the only way forward even with this dire supposed situation, that even it was caused by Ukraine, which it wasn't, as we already proven, is to give the nuclear power plant back to Ukraine under full control, and for Russia to get all of their military forces out of the territory of the nuclear station. And that is a non-negotiable position, and I am fully agreeing with that. As always, we cover the strikes against the Russian oil refining capacity. The drone strikes against the Russian oil refinery in Orsk is the latest one. This refinery is pretty far away from Ukrainian front lines. It is actually close to the border of Kazakhstan, and it's about 1,400 kilometers away, which is 840 miles. So the fact that Ukrainian drones were able to make it that far and were able to precisely target the facility is very, very good. Additionally, we got some more insight on the latest statements for the 40% of capacity that of Russian refineries. And as people were arguing in the comment section whether or not this is something that Ukrainians have achieved, yes and no. On one hand, Ukrainians are achieving big success in taking the refineries offline. The estimates are that it's about 25 to 30%, including this latest strike on the refinery, that Russian oil refinery capacity could be taken offline. But more importantly, the rest, up to the 38-40%, that is actually the part of the refining capacity of Russia that has been forced to be taken out to repair, because in the last couple of years Russia was not performing scheduled maintenance of these facilities, and they were just pushed to do more and more and more and more non-stop, and they were not doing their scheduled maintenance. And unfortunately, a lot of the Russian facilities, while if you don't perform maintenance in these facilities, at one point or another they break and you are forced to do the maintenance, which is going to be more costly. And this is exactly the situation that Russia is finding themselves in. Some waves have been made by the report that Russia has modified their missiles, and they have seen the downshifting performance of Patriot missile interception. And my problem is that this is not a completely accurate report. There has been a lot of information put together in this report without thorough enough critical assessment. So first and foremost, one thing that is true is that Russia has indeed modified the missiles. However, in the report from Financial Times, they show it in this image right over here, and this image can really paint a very unrealistic perspective of what these missiles are actually doing. So a ballistic missile is a missile that goes up into the atmosphere and then it goes down with huge speed straight to the target. And the idea is that it is so fast that it's pretty impossible to intercept with some of the classic intercept methods that you would use for the cruise missiles. And that is indeed true. However, there are systems that can intercept these missiles, such as the Patriot system, and those systems are able to predict the ballistic trajectory and then catch the missile on the ballistic trajectory, preventing it from strikes. So that is the thing that Russia has been doing so far, and we saw success being done by the Ukrainian systems. However, what we also saw that during the latest couple of months, specifically July and August, Ukrainian Patriot systems and defense systems in total have performed exceptionally well. Some of the estimates for the interceptions is that of 50 launches, 40 of those have been intercepted in some of the latest months. And unfortunately, in September, there was only one supposed interception against of 16s. And the conclusions that the Financial Times studies here, the assessment is drawn, is that from 1 of 16 is like super low. This is something that means that Ukrainian ability to intercept is just becoming really, really bad. The problem with that is that it's incomplete data. Firstly, Ukrainian missile interception has been at these lower levels beforehand, even last year. For example, last summer, the interception rate was also 6%, which is about comparable to this September number. More importantly, that doesn't include the perceptives of where exactly was the strikes conducted. Were they conducted in the area that is covered by the Patriot systems? And were there, for example, missiles available on these Patriot systems? These things are obviously not disclosed for very important reasons. So I want to make sure that we look at these numbers, we look at the information that is presented, that Russia has indeed improved missiles and now they are not flying the classic ballistic trajectories, but there is more variables that are not fully assessed by these numbers. And continuing the narrative of Russian terrorism, and again, realization that Russia is already at war with us and is already conducting offensive actions, there is this story coming from Poland and Lithuania. In the summer of 2024, Vladislav D., a 27-year-old Ukrainian living in Katowice, traveled from Poland to Lithuania 3 times. He performed tasks assigned to him via Telegram by a user nicknamed Warrior. Polish intelligence services believe this nickname represented the headquarters of the Russian GRU. This is basically spy network. During one of the missions, Vladislav D. dug up cans of corn in a cemetery in Kaunas on the orders of Warrior. He transported 2 of them to Poland and hid them near the A2 motorway exit towards Zgierz. Lithuanian counterintelligence later discovered the stash in Kaunas. The cans turned out to contain tightly packed explosives. Experts estimated that the contents of one can were equivalent to the explosive power of about 1.4 kilograms of TNT. Russia is smuggling in weapons and explosives into our own backyard, later to be used by the hidden and sleeper agents and by any other means to strike against our defense. This is a direct threat to us. I mean, the only reason why we're still not acknowledging that Russia is at war with us is because there is no explosions on our soils. But if there is already explosives being smuggled in and then later, obviously, are going to get planted by the agents, why do we need to wait until the explosions happen? If this is already happening and it's already the case. Reportedly, G7 agrees on further sanctions against Russian oil exports. Quote, "We are aligned on the need to act together and believe that now it's the time to a significant coordinated escalation of measures to bolster Ukraine's resilience and critically impair Russia's ability to wage war against Ukraine," says the draft agreement. I really want to believe that this is indeed the case. Specifically, I would like to see more pressure done on India. I don't really believe that there's going to be pressure on China, despite the fact that I think there should be. But unfortunately, we find ourselves in an imperfect world where Russia is conducting all of these operations against us, and we are responding not in kind, but rather in discussions whether or not can we legally confiscate Russian assets and whether or not should we even consider retaliating against Russia and with any additional toughness or not. The question is, why have we not done it yet? Ukraine unveils the new Neptune missile. There has been already rumors about the Long Neptune that's going to be coming out from the Ukrainian armed forces. And this new version is truly fabulous. It not only is able to travel more than 1,000 kilometers, it has also been upgraded with an additional explosive power. From 150 claimed kilograms payload initially, it has now been upgraded to carry 260 kilograms of explosives. Ukraine is very clearly stockpiling a lot of their long-range missile capabilities, and we are following very closely to see when this will be finally unloaded on Russia. It is not a question of if, it is a question of when and where. And this is also coming with some positive developments from United States, that United States will be providing additional intelligence on the targets inside of Russia for Ukraine to strike. And while a lot of people are questioning and asking, well, it's a static oil refining facilities or whatsoever, what's the point of extra intelligence? The question is not that. The question is, how well are they protected? Because Russia doesn't have as much air defense systems as it wants, so they have to shuffle them around. And following and tracing those air defense assets, that is the valuable information weighted in gold. And finally, on the new challenge coming to the European Union, the Czech elections are going to be happening in any moment now, and we most likely will see the populist, sort of a pro-Russian candidate winning this. Now, Czechs in the comment section can definitely argue whether Babiš is pro or against Russian. He has a very murky records. But I do feel that he will definitely fall in the same camp as Orban Fico. So we most likely will see a shift of trajectory of the Czech state going forward on Ukraine. And this is an unfortunate situation, and we in Europe don't have a good answer for this. Thankfully, Czechia has been doing a lot to support Ukraine, but this is going to be a definite challenge. And my hopes are that President Zelensky will try to do the best he can to win over this new coming power in Czechia the same way as he was able to win over Donald Trump. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't. This really helps booster the video in the algorithms. I love you guys. Slava Ukraini, trust in Ukrainian armed forces, and I will see you next time.